For so many students in India, the idea of studying overseas, it's this really powerful dream, isn't it? A path to, global experience, maybe better opportunities.
It absolutely is,
Mhm.
but it's getting complicated.
Yeah, exactly. What happens when that dream hits, well, reality? Things like geopolitical tensions, sudden immigration law changes, visa problems.
It's a minefield sometimes.
Mhm. We're going to dive into some really compelling stories today, especially looking at students from Karnataka, which really show both sides the huge aspirations, but also the significant hurdles they face.
And it's fascinating how these individual stories, they really paint a bigger picture, don't they? You look at the numbers, despite all this global uncertainty, the demand from Indian students hasn't dropped. It's actually surged.
Really surged.
Yeah, from about 1.3 million in 2024 to nearly 1.8 million now. It shows this deep desire for something more, maybe a global identity or validation that seems to outweigh even pretty big risks. It's
Yeah.
about transformation, I think, as much as pure education.
That's a really interesting way to put it. Transformation. Let's take Nikita Rajesh from Bengaluru. She went off to the UK, did her master's in digital marketing and analytics. The plan was probably to stay, get some experience,
Mm-hmm. Common goal?
but then, bam! After her one-year course, the UK changes its immigration law. Suddenly, you need this huge income, £37,000 for a sponsored work visa.
Wow. That's a high bar right after a master's.
Exactly. Her job prospects just vanished. She had to come back to Bengaluru. And she mentioned, lots of her Indian friends there were so determined to stay, they completely changed careers, switched whole job sectors just to find any sponsored job.
That shows incredible commitment, or maybe desperation, from the students and their families who've invested so much.
It really does. Then there's Mahaganapathy Kashinath. He was one of the students brought back from Ukraine in 2022 under Operation Gunga.
Ah, yes, that was a huge evacuation. Mostly medical students, right?
Mostly MBBS students, yeah, about 18,000 Indians in total. He couldn't just slot back into the Indian system, so he went to Uzbekistan to continue.
Okay. Trying to salvage his education.
But then another setback, he had to repeat a whole semester because his online classes from Ukraine weren't validated there. You can just imagine the frustration. His father talked about the effort to get government help, and then facing that disappointment. It's tough.
Really tough. And these disruptions aren't isolated, are they?
No, not at all. Look at Sieda Mufari Zainab. She just returned from Iran in June this year, Operation Sindhu, because of the rising Iran-Israel tensions. She hopes to go back, but she's also pleading for a place in India if that's impossible. It shows how volatile things are.
So the big question is, why does this pull, this lure of foreign education, remain so strong with all these massive challenges?
That's the million-dollar question.
Well, we are seeing a shift in where students are going. The
Mhm.
traditional favorites, like the U.S. demand, has cooled a bit, maybe partly due to things like the Trump administration's social media checks, which made some students
Right,
nervy.
especially if they were outspoken.
In Canada, too, with the recent diplomatic tensions with India, that's had an impact. So this has kind of opened the door for other countries.
Exactly. We're seeing Germany pop up more, Dubai and the UAE, Australia definitely making a comeback.
Mhm.
And for medicine, which is a huge driver, Central Asian countries are becoming options. Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, even the Philippines. They're often much cheaper.
Cheaper, yeah. How much cheaper are we talking?
Around 25-30 lakh for an entire MBBS degree, potentially. As one counselor put it makes the dream seem achievable, maybe just by selling an acre of land. It's this idea of selling the dream.
Right. And while India has excellent institutions, IITs, IMs, the reasons for going abroad often go beyond just academics, don't they?
Absolutely. Students like Nikita talked about wanting that universal educational experience, learning alongside people from all over the world. Plus, let's be honest, foreign colleges are often much better at marketing themselves. They have these strong agent networks.
And the power of social media. Seeing those filtered aspirational lives online.
Oh, definitely. That plays a huge role in keeping the dream alive. But the flip side is the financial pressure. Akash and Katashan's story really hit home, having to cut costs constantly, knowing he wouldn't get a visa extension, and then facing the struggle of repaying loans on a lower Indian salary.
It's a precarious balancing act for so many. So what we're seeing is this complex mix, isn't it? Economic ambition, global uncertainty, individual resilience, the push from India, fierce competition, wanting broader exposure, and the pull from abroad, perceived better opportunities. Even if the reality is sometimes harsh, the very definition of success seems to be changing for these students. It's not just the degree, it's navigating this unpredictable global landscape.
Okay, let's shift gears now. The India-UK Free Trade Agreement, the FTA, signed just recently, July 24th, 2025. On the face of it, this looks like great news for the economy, right? A boost for trade.
Yeah, that's certainly the headline, a positive economic step. But almost immediately, serious public health concerns have been flagged. Big ones.
Public health, how does that connect to a trade deal?
Well, there's a strong argument being made that this FTA could act like a Trojan horse for non-communicable diseases in India.
A Trojan horse? That sounds quite alarming. What's the potential hidden cost here?
The core issue is this. The agreement allows UK-made high-fat, sugar, and salt HFSS food products to enter India tariff-free.
Ah, so they'll become cheaper.
Exactly. Cheaper prices, likely combined with aggressive marketing campaigns. That combination poses really serious long-term health risks for the Indian population. And this isn't just speculation. There's a stark warning from history.
You're talking about Mexico, right? After NAFTA back in '92.
Precisely. Mexico made the mistake of not putting strong public health safeguards in place alongside the trade deal. What happened? A flood of cheap, sugary drinks and processed foods from the U.S.
And consumption shot up.
Dramatically, which led directly to a massive surge in diet-related diseases, obesity, diabetes, the whole lot. Mexico eventually had to backtrack and bring in measures like a soda tax and mandatory warning labels in 2014 to even begin tackling the problem.
So the worry is India could be heading down a similar path, especially given our, shall we say, less robust regulatory environment compared to the UK.
That's the core concern. The UK has relatively strong rules banning HFSS ads on TV before 9 p.m., a complete online ban starting October 1st this year, and their traffic light front-of-pack nutrition labeling, the FOP&L.
Right, the traffic lights, we see those on imported goods sometimes.
But India's system, it's often described as suboptimal. We don't have binding rules stopping junk food ads targeting kids, and the rules we do have are often ignored. We lean heavily on industry self-regulation via the Advertising Standards Council of India, ASAI, which frankly hasn't been very effective with food ads.
And you still see cartoon characters on sugary cereals, celebrities endorsing unhealthy snacks.
Exactly. It normalizes these choices, especially for young people.
Then there's the whole saga around getting mandatory front-of-pack nutrition labeling, FOP&L, implemented in India. It seems stuck.
It is. There's this ongoing debate, a preference in some quarters for a star rating system, which many health experts warn could be misleading, making unhealthy products look better than they are. Clear warning labels are seen as much more effective.
And the suspicion is industry lobbying is holding things up.
That suspicion is widespread, yes. Even though the Supreme Court itself, back in April 2025, told the authorities to make a decision on warning labels quickly.
Meanwhile, the health statistics aren't looking great, are they?
Not at all. India is facing a rapidly rising burden of lifestyle diseases. The market for ultra-processed foods, UPFs, and these HFSS items grew at a staggering 13.3% compound annual rate between 2011 and 2021. And recent Lancet studies highlighted the global obesity crisis, hitting all ages, kids especially hard.
So this FTA isn't just about economics. It's landing right in the middle of a public health challenge. This idea you mentioned, commercial determinants of health.
Yeah, it captures how trade policies, economic drivers can directly impact health outcomes, sometimes negatively, becoming these Trojan horses for disease.
So looking ahead.
It's a classic trade-off. Economic benefits versus public health protection. Now that the FTA is signed, while the detailed legal text is being worked out, India has this crucial, perhaps narrow window. It needs to act now to put strong public health safeguards in place.
Like what specifically?
Things like properly regulating HFSS advertising, especially to kids, making clear mandatory warning labels happen, maybe introducing HFSS boards in schools, getting unhealthy food out of canteens. The urgency is real if India wants to avoid repeating Mexico's experience and protect its people's long-term health.
Okay, let's shift to something quite different and incredibly sensitive: adoption in India. There's this statistic that just stops you in your tracks. For every single child legally free for adoption, there are apparently 13 parents waiting.
That's a staggering ratio, 13 to 1.
It immediately raises the question, doesn't it? Should India relax its adoption procedures to speed things up, make it easier for these waiting parents?
Well, that's the common assumption, that the bottleneck is the strictness of the procedures from KRI, the Central Adoption Resource Authority. But according to experts like Smriti Gupta, that's actually a misconception.
Oh. So it's not the red tape slowing things down.
Apparently not the primary reason. Smriti Gupta argues the real delay comes from something much more fundamental: the very low number of children who are legally free for adoption in the first place.
Right. So the pool of available children is small.
Exactly. And within that small pool, most waiting parents understandably want young, healthy children. But many of the children who are legally free are older or have special needs, and they're often less sought after.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the procedures themselves? Are they too strict?
Well, Aloma Lobo makes a strong case that these procedures, even if they feel lengthy, are absolutely necessary. They provide vital checks and balances,
To prevent what?
primarily to prevent trafficking and improper placements. She points to past cases internationally where, without rigorous checks, children ended up being illegally placed, causing immense harm. You need those safeguards.
So if relaxing procedures isn't the answer, what is? How do you speed things up for the children who need homes?
The focus, according to these experts, needs to shift. It shouldn't be about making it faster for parents, but about speeding up the process of getting eligible children into the legal adoption pool.
Meaning children who are currently outside the system?
Precisely. Think about the many children living in child shelters, maybe abandoned or orphaned years ago. They might be eligible for adoption, but they often aren't evaluated or registered within the official system. Only kids already in specialized adoption agencies tend to get assessed.
Right, so there's a disconnect.
And this is where some NGOs are trying to bridge the gap. Smriti Gupta's organization, for example, is digitizing data from shelters, looking at 22 different categories for each child to identify those who could potentially be adopted.
And then presenting these cases to the child welfare committees.
Exactly. So the CWC can make a decision about whether that child should be declared legally free for adoption. It's about finding out if children are truly in safe, wanted environments, and if not, using the legal system to find them one.
This touches on the whole orphan figure we sometimes hear, right?
Mhm.
The massive numbers, like 3.1 crore.
Yes, and that term orphan is often used very loosely. Many children on the streets or even in shelters might still have families or extended relatives. The key isn't just labeling, it's assessing their actual situation. Are they safe? Are they wanted? If not, the legal adoption route should be explored.
And this is why the strict procedures become crucial again, isn't it? Because of that demand-supply gap, especially for infants.
Absolutely. That imbalance creates a real risk of a gray area or black market developing, where children might be given away illegally, completely bypassing the system. Routing all potentially adoptable children through the legal pool is the best way to protect them from abuse and exploitation.
Aloma Lobo had that really powerful quote.
We are finding a family for a child, not a child for family.
Yes. That really flips the perspective, doesn't it? The child's best interest and safety have to come first.
And this applies especially to older children and those with special needs. There's apparently an immediate placement list for special needs kids, but sometimes it leads to problems parents might not be fully prepared and end up returning the child.
Which must be devastating for everyone involved.
It highlights a gap. There needs to be much more robust parental training and counseling, especially in domestic adoption, perhaps mirroring what's done for international adoptions. There's also been a decline in group and individual counseling sessions, and home studies might not be as thorough as they could be.
So bottom line, the long waiting lists aren't necessarily solved by cutting procedural corners.
No, the focus needs to be systemic. It's about strengthening the child protection system to identify and bring more eligible children safely into the legal adoption pool, ensuring thorough assessment of parents, providing better support, and always prioritizing the child's long-term well-being over simply speeding up placements. It's about ensuring every child gets a safe, permanent, loving home with safeguards firmly in place.
Okay, let's talk about sports. India has these big ambitions, doesn't it? Hosting major events like the Olympics, aiming for global sporting excellence. It's a huge national goal.
It certainly is. You hear a lot about top-level funding and elite programs.
Right. But behind those headlines, there are quieter initiatives making a real difference at the grassroots level. One that really caught my eye is Signify's Kel Jyoti initiative.
Signify, the lighting company, what are they doing?
Well, as a global leader in lighting, they've channeled their CSR corporate social responsibility into something quite specific and impactful, lighting up playgrounds. They've lit nearly 200 across India so far.
Wow, 200 playgrounds. That sounds simple, but I imagine it makes a huge difference.
It really does. Look at the Brahmaputra Volleyball League, the BVL in Assam. It was started by Abhijit Bhattacharya, a former national volleyball captain, back in 2020. His goal was simply to build a sports culture in rural areas.
A great ambition. What were the challenges?
The big one was time. After school, kids basically only had about an hour of daylight to practice. Trying to run a league with 780 matches took them 5 whole months.
Just not enough playing time.
Exactly. Then Kelgiodi stepped in. They initially lit 20 grounds, then 100 more. The impact was immediate. Kids, especially girls who might have had chores or safety concerns after dark, could suddenly practice for 3 or 4 extra hours every evening.
That's transformative for skill development.
Totally. The result, they completed 783 matches in just 3 months instead of 5. And incredibly, 100% of the players selected for Assam's under-17 and under-14 state teams came from the BVL.
That's a stunning statistic. Proof of impact right there.
And what's really neat is the community buy-in. The local clubs manage the electricity, bills, and maintenance. They have ownership.
That's crucial for sustainability. And it's not just volleyball in Assam, is it?
No, the impact is broader. Think about the Siddhi tribe in Mungad, Karnataka. They're of African descent, known for their natural athletic talent.
Right, I've heard about them. Often face challenges with resources, though.
Exactly. An NGO called Bridges of Sports, or Bo Iles, is training about 50 young athletes there. But they lacked proper facilities, especially lighting. Kelgiodi lit up their training area.
So they could train more consistently.
Yes, allowing practice early before school or late in the evening. This consistency is key. And you see the results in stories like Nayana Kokari's.
Tell me about her.
She's the first girl from her tribal village ever to finish 12th grade. She won an Asian U20 relay medal, and now she's training in a UK performance program along with another city athlete, Nemeksha Sidi.
Incredible. From a village playground to international training.
It shows how basic infrastructure like lighting can literally light up a pathway to elite sport and even higher education.
It really does broaden horizons.
And the initiative reaches further, still supporting football talent in Delhi with Sudeva, helping girls in football and handball in Bihar through the Rani Laxmibai Sports Academy, Kabaddi centers in Delhi, Kho-Kho in Kanpur.
So it's across different sports and regions.
Yes, and they're expanding into Punjab's schools of eminence, even lighting professional facilities like the Inspire Institute of Sports. Signify's philosophy seems to be summed up in that phrase they use.
Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya.
Exactly. From darkness, lead me to light. They see investing in sports as fostering holistic development, empowering communities, especially girls, and building that robust national sporting culture from the ground up. It connects directly to the government's talk about the power of sports to change lives. It's a simple idea light with potentially profound consequences. Now, let's turn back to a rather contentious issue we touched on earlier, the electoral process. Specifically, the Election Commission of India's stance in the Supreme Court regarding that special intensive revision, or our exercise in Bihar.
Right, the one that effectively acts like a citizenship test for people already on the voter rolls.
Exactly. The ECI is defending it, claiming they have the statutory authority to basically do a de novo preparation, meaning everyone has to provide fresh proof of citizenship.
But what's the evidence driving this? Are the voter rolls in Bihar actually filled with foreigners?
Well, that's the puzzling part. The ECI's own affidavit, the complaints they cite, they mostly relate to pretty standard issues. Duplicate names, names of people who have passed away, people who've moved. There's apparently no concrete evidence presented of illegal migrants from other countries being widely enrolled in Bihar.
So it raises the question, why such a drastic, resource-intensive measure if the problem it's supposedly solving hasn't been clearly demonstrated?
It leads critics to question the real rationale. And legally, it's argued this whole process improperly shifts the burden of proof. Suddenly, every single existing registered voter has to prove their citizenship all over again.
Even though there are already established procedures for deleting ineligible names, like non-citizens, if found.
Precisely. Plus, the legal basis for this specific type of intensive revision is being called fuzzy. The Representation of the People Act of 1950 doesn't clearly define what makes a revision intensive versus, say, a summary or special revision.
So the statutory foundation itself is a bit shaky.
That's the argument. And then there are inconsistencies in what documents are accepted. The ECI rejects Aadhaar and the voter ID card, the IPK, as proof of citizenship for this exercise.
Which seems odd given their prevalence.
But then they seem to give a pass to people who were on the 2003 electoral rolls and their children without demanding fresh documents from them. It appears inconsistent.
And the criteria being used for citizenship proof itself is controversial, isn't it? Based on the 2003 Citizenship Amendment Act.
Yes, requiring details like parents' birthplaces. But the crucial point here is that the constitutionality of that 2003 act is still being challenged in the Supreme Court. It hasn't been fully settled.
Right. And the National Register Indian Citizens, the NRC, which that act enables.
It hasn't actually been rolled out nationwide. Except for the specific case of Assam, the central government hasn't initiated it. PM Modi himself said back in 2019 his cabinet hadn't even discussed a nationwide NRC since 2014.
So the ECI seems to be implementing criteria derived from a law whose constitutionality is under review and anticipating a nationwide NRC process that hasn't officially begun.
That's the core of the legal critique. How can the ECI conduct what amounts to a citizenship verification drive under the guise of electoral roll revision without a clear, undisputed legal mandate for that specific test? Critics call it administrative minimalism, sticking rigidly to a procedure, perhaps without fully considering the substantive impact on inclusion.
And the potential impact is huge, especially in a state like Bihar with massive internal migration. We mentioned the 1.2 million names deleted for non-residency.
Yes, hitting 5–7% in some high out-migration districts. It's not just bureaucratic, it's what some call structural disenfranchisement. The system itself, designed for a more sedentary population, potentially excludes large numbers of genuine citizens simply because they move for work. It sends this signal that they don't belong.
What about the practicalities? Has the ECI managed to collect forms and documents from everyone?
They claim high form collection rates, but here's the catch. They haven't revealed how many forms actually came with the required supporting documents. That scrutiny only happens after the draft roll is published.
So the real picture of potential exclusions isn't clear yet.
Not fully. And significant numbers, maybe 2.7% of electors, hadn't submitted forms by the deadline, and another 6.7% couldn't be found at their addresses. That includes over 3 million people who've permanently migrated. There are real concerns about errors in exclusion, especially if they affect specific communities disproportionately.
And the rejection of common documents like Aadhaar and ration cards adds to the difficulty for many.
Yes, the logic for rejecting Aadhaar that it doesn't prove citizenship is called specious because the ECI's primary mandate isn't a citizenship test anyway, it's electoral roll management based on residency. Rejecting ration cards due to alleged fakes seems inconsistent when they accept things like residence certificates, which also face questions about accuracy.
It really highlights the tension between ensuring clean rolls and ensuring maximum participation. Other democracies face this too, right?
They do, and some have found creative solutions. The U.S. uses absentee and mail-in ballots extensively. The Philippines enables millions of overseas workers to vote. Australia uses mobile polling stations for remote areas.
Proving that inclusivity and integrity aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. It depends on the system design.
Exactly. The call is for the ECI to advocate for reforms that reflect India's reality of high internal migration. Unless there's a change in stance, the worry is that this Bihar exercise could become, as one analysis put it, a fiasco bigger than the Assam NRC.
Which was costly, complex, and ultimately controversial even among its supporters. It's a critical moment, really, testing the balance between bureaucratic procedure and the fundamental right to vote for millions of citizens.
Okay, for our final piece, let's talk about something completely different, manga and anime, specifically Makoto Yukimura's Vinland Saga. Huge globally, and it's just wrapping up after 2 decades.
Vinland Saga, yeah, huge following. Known for its Viking setting, right? Brutal fights, revenge.
That's how it starts, yes. It definitely pulls you in with that familiar Viking epic feel, vengeance, conquest, lots of bloodshed. But if that's all you think it is, you're missing the real heart of the story. It takes a pretty surprising turn.
Oh, how so? It's not just about Vikings conquering things.
Not at all, not ultimately. The main character, Thorfinn, he starts out absolutely consumed by revenge for his father's death. Classic stuff. But around the midpoint, something shifts dramatically inside him.
A change of heart.
A profound one. He takes this vow of nonviolence, and his new goal becomes finding or creating Vinland, not just the historical place, but a kind of utopia, a land where, as he puts it, no one owns another and no one draws a sword.
Wow, that's a massive shift from a Viking revenge plot. How does the author make that convincing?
Well, Yukimura is known for meticulous research. He studied sagas, traveled to Scandinavia, consulted anthropologists, got the historical details right, Viking law, daily life, all of it. But he's also said, the facts were never the point. He used that foundation to imagine a different path for the historical Thorfinn, one that didn't end in failure or violence.
So the focus moves away from the action.
Gradually, yes. The story becomes less about battles and more about farming, building community, introspection, it gets, as one critic said, slower, quieter, and immeasurably deeper.
And this vow of nonviolence, this no enemies idea,
That's the core message. Yeah, I have no enemies. It's repeated throughout the later parts. And it's not presented as easy or simple. It's a hard-earned philosophical commitment.
where did that philosophy come from?
It seems to echo lots of different traditions. You can see hints of Buddhist metta or loving kindness, maybe Christian love for enemies, Stoic principles about controlling one's reactions, even post-colonial ideas about resisting the urge to other people. The point is, it rejects the whole mindset that makes violence seem like the only option, the inevitable solution.
And the author himself believes this.
Apparently, yes. Yukimura has said he's a pacifist, that he'd rather go to prison than fight. And that personal conviction, you can feel it in the story. It gives it this real force, making these thousand-year-old characters speak very directly to our current world, which is, let's face it, full of conflict.
Does it offer easy answers, though? How to achieve this nonviolent world?
No, not at all. Thorfinn struggles constantly. The story raises really tough questions without simple solutions. How do you actually break cycles of violence? What does justice look like if you embrace forgiveness but still remember the wrongs done? Can a society built on conquest ever truly find peace?
So it makes the reader think, rather than just providing a feel-good message.
Exactly. It seems to suggest that true strength, real heroism, isn't about winning fights, but about that relentless, difficult struggle for inner peace, for empathy, even towards those who harm you.
And this has resonated with fans.
Massively, it's built this really devoted following, people who seem to find genuine solace in its message, almost like a blueprint for a kinder, gentler way of living. And Thorfinn's journey is often praised for promoting a kind of healthy masculinity, encouraging empathy, taking responsibility, emotional growth, rather than just aggression.
That's quite unique for the genre.
It is. And unlike some other long-running epics like Berserk or Vagabond, Vinland Saga is actually reaching its intended conclusion, which is rare. It gives fans a sense of closure, but also leaves them with this lingering, hopeful, maybe challenging thought. Can we take that dream of Vinland, that commitment to having no enemies, and apply it somehow in our own messy, violent world? Thank you for listening. If today's episode gave you something useful, consider following us on Spotify so you're the first to hear the next one. You can give suggestions by contacting on Twitter handle given in the episode description. We are always eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.